Hello, and welcome all to Movie Hunter, the show that tracks down the quality of all sorts of movies. My name is Hunter, and today in the 22nd episode, our target is Atlantis The Lost Empire, distributed by Buena Vista Pictures Distribution and produced by Walt Disney Feature Animation. The film was first conceived in October of 1996 when directors Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, producer Don Hahn, and screenplay writer Tab Murphy had lunch at a Mexican restaurant in Burbank, California. Having recently finished The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the group talked about creating a new film with inspiration from Jules Verne's novels, specifically Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, also later drawing inspiration from the works of Edgar Cayce. The creators wanted to ensure that their depiction of Atlantis was unique, and they researched the architecture for many ancient cultures. For the characters' underground journey to Atlantis, the filmmakers traveled to the underground caverns in Carlsbad, New Mexico. For the fictional Atlantean language, they brought in Mark Oakland, most famous for developing the Klingon language for Star Trek. The story, as with just about any movie, went through numerous script changes, though what was especially interesting was that the initial draft was 155 pages, as opposed to the 90 pages that Disney films typically run, meaning that much of the film had to be cut down, including some characters and the trials that the characters would have to overcome. One such cut content is the protagonist Milo, originally going to be the descendant of Blackbeard the pirate, interestingly enough. The film released on June 15, 2001, and made $186.1 million on a budget of $90 to $120 million, underperforming at the box office. It became Walt Disney Animation Studios' 41st film after 2000's The Emperor's New Groove and before 2002's Lilo and Stitch. The directors were Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, who previously worked together to direct both Beauty and the Beast and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The screenplay was by Tab Murphy, and the producer was Don Hahn. The story was by Kirk Wise, Gary Trousdale, Joss Whedon, Bryce Zabel, Jackie Zabel, and Tab Murphy. The editing was by Ellen Kenesha, and the music was by James Newton Howard. The cast includes Michael J. Fox, Cree Summer, Leonard Nimoy, James Garner, Claudia Christian, Don Novello, Phil Morris, Jacqueline Obradors, Florence Stanley, Corey Burton, John Mahoney, and Jim Varney, who tragically died before the film's completion but was said to still put in 100% effort despite his worsening disease, with Stephen Barr recording the extra needed lines for the character. The film was received mostly mixed and negatively upon release, with many not even seeing the film in the first place, with most suspecting the competition to be too great, with films like Shrek and The Fast and the Furious releasing around the same time. The film was nominated for 15 awards, of which it won 1 of. Due to the film's poor reception, the spin-off series called Team Atlantis was canceled and reworked into a direct-to-DVD sequel called Atlantis Milo's Return. 2 theme park attractions were also planned for the film, with one being canceled and the other reworked into a Finding Nemo-themed ride. The film also sparked a controversy that it plagiarized from the anime TV series Nadia, the Secret of the Blue Water. Though no lawsuit did ever take place, and one of the directors of the film, Kirk Wise, stated that he had never even heard of the series until the issue was brought to his attention. On top of that, both films are inspired by the novels of Jules Verne. However, the creator of the TV series still feels that things not mentioned in the books, but present in both the show and the film, were too similar to be a coincidence. I myself have not read Jules Verne's novels, nor have I seen Nadia, the Secret of the Blue Water, so I cannot speak to their similarities, but for what it's worth, I find the claims to be merely a coincidence and natural evolution of Verne's novels. But like I said, I am not at all qualified to say such things as fact. The film takes place in 1914 and follows Milo Thatch, who works in the boiling room of the Smithsonian Institute. Thanks to his grandfather, Milo has a fascination for Atlantis, believing that he can find a thing called the Shepherd's Journal in Iceland that will detail the whereabouts of Atlantis, and attempts to have the museum fund an expedition for him and a crew. He is rejected by them and returns home to find someone named Helga, who works for a man named Preston Whitmore, a personal friend of Milo's grandfather, who wants to fund an expedition for Milo to make good on a deal he made with his grandfather years ago. Mr. Whitmore reveals that Milo's grandfather had found the Shepherd's Journal already, but the writings are all Atlantean, which only Milo can decipher. The crew that aided his grandfather retrieve the journal returns for this expedition, as well as some newcomers, among them Milo, to serve as the linguist. Aboard the submarine, Milo meets some of the crew, including Commander Rourke and his lieutenant Helga. There is also Vinny, the demolitions expert, Mole the geologist, Audrey the mechanic, Mrs. Packard the radio operator, Sweet the doctor, and Cookie the cook, as well as many mercenaries. The sub encounters a mechanical leviathan that destroys the sub, killing most of the crew. Fleeing in escape pods, the remaining crew continue their travels among ancient ruins, where they eventually come across Atlantis, being welcomed by the Princess Kida. Kida takes them to her father, the King of Atlantis, who tells them that they are not welcome and are to leave immediately. Though Commander Rourke is able to convince the king to let them stay one night and rest. Milo then travels with Kida, who tells of how thousands of years ago the city of Atlantis was struck by a large tsunami that left only a small portion of the city left. The crystals that they wear around their necks have kept them alive for centuries, but the knowledge of the crystal's other powers have long been lost to time. Milo helps Kida uncover the mysteries of Atlantis using his translation of the Atlantean language, which has also been long forgotten. Together, they discover that the crystals are powered by the heart of Atlantis, but no one knows where it is. After emerging from their adventure, Milo and Kida are held hostage by Rourke and the crew, revealing their true intentions of stealing the heart of Atlantis for profit, despite it meaning that the Atlanteans would lose their lives. Rourke reveals that he stole a page from the journal detailing the heart of Atlantis and demands Milo read it, but only reads, "The heart of Atlantis lies in the eyes of her king." Rourke demands the answers from the king, punching him and sitting in his throne, before realizing that the heart lays below the platform the king's throne looks at. Rourke, Helga, Milo, and Kida go and find the heart of Atlantis, which merges with Kida to protect itself, and Rourke and the crew begin their journey back to the surface with the crystallized Kida. Milo convinces some of the crew members to ditch Rourke, and Rourke abandons them. In his final moments, the king reveals that when Atlantis is in great danger, the heart sacrifices an heir of royal blood to protect Atlantis, which is what happened to his wife when Atlantis was attacked by the tsunami. The king kept the heart a secret as to keep Kida safe from being sacrificed, and begs Milo to separate Kida from the crystal to save her. Milo, the crew, and the Atlanteans then use their ancient technology that Milo helps them use to defeat Rourke, who dies in the process, and save Kida in Atlantis. Milo then stays behind, having fallen in love with Kida, and the crew returns to the surface with many riches, along with a crystal from Mr. Whitmore, which Milo sent to him to confirm that he made good on his deal. Firstly, let us discuss the protagonist Milo, as well as Kida, the princess of Atlantis, who ends up with Milo by the end of the film. I put them together in this section as my opinion of them is rather the same, really. I don't think that either of them are bad characters, rather I just find that they lack an arc or anything of the sort. Milo in the beginning of the film is more or less the same as he is in the end, and Kida is introduced about halfway through the film and remains the same throughout. There is an argument that Milo learns to be more confident and brave throughout the journey, and that's definitely true, but in terms of things to analyze, it's a pretty standard hero's journey. With that said, I do really like Milo as the protagonist. His arc, while standard, is a successful telling of the tried-and-true classic storytelling. On top of that, I find Milo to be a very likable character. He's a very kind person who wants the best for those around him, but also lacks the competence to finish the journey that he slowly develops as people become more and more reliant on him and his knowledge. He's also got quite a few funny jokes, such as when Rourke is pressing him for answers and he's in the middle of looking for them, and Milo says, "Oh, I know, why don't you translate and I'll wave the gun around." It's also sweet to see him carry on his grandfather's legacy and have his grandfather's old crew slowly get attached to him. As far as Kida goes, I don't really have much to say. She's occasionally funny, and her interactions with her father, trying to talk him into trusting the humans more to possibly restore their past greatness, are good moments for her. Also, Milo and Kida's relationship really isn't all that well developed, and feels like a result of the fact that they're the two protagonists of the film. In the end, I think this film is great, but it isn't really because of Milo and Kida, though they are still net positives for the film. My main issue here is simply the fact that everything else is great, while they're just rather good. Now, the villain Rourke, on the other hand, is quite possibly the best part of the film. If Atlantis is the most underrated Disney film, then I have no trouble in saying that Rourke is easily the most underrated villain. The Great Mouse Detective serves as some great competition with Professor Ratigan, but I feel like he's gained quite a few fans as time has passed. What makes Rourke such a great villain is that his twist as a bad guy isn't really even a twist too much. Commander Rourke, as well as the rest of the crew, were always in this for the money, as made very clear in the scene in which Milo talks with the members of the crew around the campfire. There's also a scene where the crew first reaches Atlantis, and his lieutenant, Helga, says that the fact that there are people living here changes everything, only for Rourke to say that it changes nothing. Rourke's turn to the bad side is not unrealistic because he's always played it straight. Yet at the same time, the twist doesn't have no effect because he's always seemed like he had morals. Like maybe money was simply a motivation to him, but not a necessity in the face of the death of others. I've also always loved the clever, subtle detail of his first scene talking with Milo, where he marvels at all the knowledge they will uncover on this journey, and Rourke simply states, yes, this should be enriching for all of us, deceiving Milo into thinking that he cares about knowledge as opposed to the rest of the crew, but with the specific use of the word enriching shows that money is what's really on his mind. What also works really well is that Rourke is allowed time to be a really good and intimidating villain. His use of force to get his way is threatening to the lives of those around him, and even results in the death of the king. However, this is also the cause of his downfall. Every person he betrays plays a pivotal role in his death. First with Milo, then the Atlanteans, then his crew when he takes things too far, and finally with his own lieutenant. When he, Helga, and the crystallized Kida are escaping via hot air balloon, and the balloon is getting weighed down after Milo, the crew, and the Atlanteans attack, Rourke throws Helga overboard. However, this would be the last person he ever betrays because Helga is able to fire a flare at the balloon, bringing the whole thing bursting into flames. Rourke's final battle against Milo is also great. Him swinging with an axe, hitting the cage holding Kida, and Milo using the broken glass shard to cut open Rourke's arm. Then the crystal infects Rourke, turning him into a crystal and blowing up. This subsequently results in the underground volcano erupting and giving way to a final chase. Rourke is a great villain from start to finish. I could go on and on with more examples, but I think I've made my overall point clear. Rourke is a very effective and unique villain that falls so close to realism that it's almost scary. He is only interested in profit and will do anything to get it. Next, I'd like to explore the various side characters that make up the crew. These characters are hilarious and very unique and offer great storytelling for what would otherwise be slow parts of the film. Vinny, the demolitions expert, is a really funny character that is obsessed with explosives, but also has a dream of reopening his family's flower shop. His monotone voice that he uses for daily conversation, but also for his talks of explosion, is a great character trait of his. Mole, the geologist, is probably my least favorite. He doesn't really have much going on, but he's still not a bad character. His mole-like behavior is occasionally funny. Audrey, the mechanic, is a really fun character. She's the only one of the main group that wasn't part of Milo's grandfather's crew, and so is quicker to warm up to Milo than the rest. I enjoyed her story about how her father wanted two sons, one to help out around the shop, and the other to become a championship boxer, but instead got Audrey, who became a mechanic, and her sister, who became a boxer anyways. Mrs. Packard, the radio operator, is a hilarious character who doesn't take her job all that seriously, though still gets the job done. I love the scene where they're evacuating the sub, and Mrs. Packard is just casually having a conversation with her sister during the chaos, as well as her common saying, "We're all going to die." Cookie the cook is a fun addition, with not a lot of time to shine, but makes good use of his small amount of it. My favorite is his rant on his self-made 4 basic food groups. Sweet, the doctor, is also a somewhat underutilized character, but I like his kind nature despite his muscular appearance. Finally, although not part of the adventure, I wanted to mention Mr. Whitmore, the man who funded the adventure and was a friend of Milo's grandfather. I like his small arc about making good on the deal that he made with the grandfather all these years ago. What I liked the most about the crew is their ability to serve the story well as individuals, but also as a group, like when they turn on Rourke. They are a great example of how to make compelling side characters. One thing that I really like is how they are introduced. They aren't all dumped into the story at once, but rather we meet them as Milo slowly meets them, and some we even see in the background first. Similarly, their stories, while all told in the same scene, are quick and to the point, and don't feel like a story dump, but rather a meaningful expansion to the world. The side characters in this film are a large part of the fun and jokes, and are great examples of how to do side characters right. But finally, I'd like to end off the discussion by talking about Atlantis and the storytelling involved. Atlantis is a really fun and unique location that differs quite well from the rest of the film. On top of that, I find the Atlantis lore to be really fun. I like the concept of the heart of Atlantis sacrificing a person of royal blood to protect Atlantis when in times of danger. And there's the fact that this affects the story, as the king of Atlantis chooses to keep the crystal a secret in order to protect his daughter, despite the fact that it takes away the technology and knowledge that the Atlanteans used to have. I haven't really experienced many other Atlantis stories, so I'm not completely sure whether or not specific ideas are unique or not, but I'm going to work on the opinion that it is unique to the film, because regardless of the idea's origin, there was still the decision to keep it in the film. The opening of the film, showing the destruction of Atlantis, is a crazy sight, and the contrasting ending to the film, showing Atlantis returning to its former glory, is really rewarding. Even the smaller things, like the shepherd's journal, is really fun, and I've always liked the opening where Milo explains that the writing on the back of a shield was mistranslated to read Ireland, when it really should have read Iceland, the location of the shepherd's journal. There's a lot of really cool details and lore to be discovered in this film, while also not remaining too complicated. I also think that there is a lot of fun to be found on the ground level too. I love the decision to make the film take place in 1914. It's a really small detail, but it's a really cool one, and allows for things like radio operators to be used. The journey and seeing the meshing of these two worlds is also a really well done part of the film, with the crew destroying ancient architecture to advanced and seemingly small and insignificant scenes, but make well for the message presented by the villain Rourke to really shine through by the end. I give Atlantis the Lost Empire a 9 out of 10, for being quite possibly the most underrated Disney film of all time. With characters that range from good to great, a great world, and a fun adventure, I highly recommend checking out this film. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close, and the villain alone makes it more than a worthwhile watch. Welp, that's all folks. I hope you enjoyed, and feel free to share any opinions you had on the movie. A new episode releases each week, so stay tuned to see which film I cover next. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.